After regaining some strength with the coffee break, we have technological transfer and cooperation between industry and academia, where we will be sharing some examples such as the Scientific Challenge Contest as part of the JNIC 2017, chairing Juan Díez from INCIBE. Juan, you have the floor. So thank you very much to you all for your attendance to this round panel. We will discuss transfer. There will be other panels discussing transfer and tech challenges. And so we thought of first introducing why this panel is necessary and the topic as well. Then I'll introduce the speakers, expert speakers with us today. And then we'll open for questions where we would hope to have your questions. The questions you might ask from the audience, or else I have some questions myself. Let me use a presentation.
Bueno, vamos a hablar un poco de transferencia.
So we will discuss transfer. What's transfer? Tech transfer. Here I've tried to depict different factors that can be a part of tech transfer. Whenever we say cybersecurity, we refer to three main stakeholders: industry, academia or academics, and then the government. I really prefer this other model where we have four stakeholders, which I guess that define the link in cybersecurity. We have industry, the business sector, where we have corporates and SMEs as well, and entrepreneurs, and investors, because they are the ones in charge of building the products and services for cybersecurity needed by users. Then at the bottom you see the end users and the citizens. It is not just citizens for cybersecurity which they request, but there's also sophisticated demand, meaning CERTs, critical infrastructure operators, or even law enforcement agencies. And then we have academics or the research ecosystem, where we have universities, tech and research centers. So they each have their role, and as part of the tech transfer, we would like to focus on the link between two actors or stakeholders, that is business and business, industry, and research. In the end, I guess industry follows market interests, what is demanded by end users, and it is innovative processes that are focusing on the market. Yet academics traditionally follows science, scientific needs, the new challenges we find, the new threats for which we need this scientific approach in order to reply to the demand, to satisfy the demand. They do not so much follow user needs. Then we have the fourth stakeholder, that it's the government, the administration, focusing them. They are focusing on making sure that all the stakeholders work together, facilitate and promote with funding projects whenever and wherever it is needed. So when it comes to tech transfer, it is up to us to make sure that these stakeholders work closely, so that researchers do not just lead to scientific production, such as papers that have an impact index and improve science. That matters, but that's not enough. That effort, in order to bring scientific solutions, need to come real in market solutions that meet our users' needs. By understanding what the model is like and what transfer is like, well, that's what we come here to discuss. I should like to use our short introduction to share some interesting data, so that you know how we are doing in Spain when it comes to research, so that we all understand if we've done our homework, and we need to understand where we are and what we do. One of the reports that is from 2017, Ecotech report, gives us some reference on how we are doing. As for research, Spain, even though it's gone down compared to previous years, we are ranking 11 at a world level. This is research, this is science. I feel a country such as ours, where investment into research has always been reduced, the fact that we are ranking 11th, that's quite a merit, because there are other countries that have larger investments. So there is research, and the impact level is quite high. If we focus on cybersecurity, we find for computer science, as part of science, we're somewhere around ranking number 11 again. So the papers published by our scientists in cybersecurity are abundant, are enough. We have critical mass. We at INCIBE, we've seen there are some 105 research teams all over Spain looking into cybersecurity, and their scientific work has been acknowledged and recognized internationally. But that's it most of the time. That is just a scientific production, that it's moving forward in knowledge. But transferring the knowledge into patents, into product, that's where we are not so good. It is clear as well from this report that the patent level in Spain from scientific production is well below other neighboring countries. And so, well, in the end, this is what transfer is translated into. At the end of the research, under some licensing, we should have an option to move forward with the study into a product, and that's what we need to work on. As for innovation comes from companies mainly. As for that ranking, and this is also 2017 report, Spain is ranking number 28 at a world level, which is not a bad result, but when compared to the Eurozone, that would be our area of influence, we're 18, which is not a very high position compared to our European counterparts. There is research, it is relevant, there is innovation, and we need to make sure that both worlds come together, they come linked together, interact. Just as to share some data, these are data from CDTI. Spanish companies, especially SMEs, are very active in getting funding for R&D and I, especially coming from European funding, mainly the research and innovation program called Horizon 2020. There you see that as for investment return, we are ranking 4th. If we move into the H2020 programs that are very more specific and touch upon cybersecurity, such as Challenge number 7 or ICP program, then we're ranking 4th and 5th, respectively. You can see how SMEs are now up to date and are getting funding from Europe for their innovation processes. And the SMEs instrument, one of the options given by Horizon 2020 for fundraising, there Spain is ranking 1st. So, what do we mean? We mean that research in Spain in scientific terms is doing quite right. Interesting things are being done. As for innovation, we are not doing so badly. Still, we need to still focus on the fact that scientific work needs to become real with more collaborations with the industry so that we have reference services and products. This is a global market, so the products that we create to meet our users' needs in our nation help also users in every other country. And finally, after my short presentation, let me tell you that through different surveys, this report has also shown us what the problems could be, what the working options could be. And here you see some of the questions that were asked, where the financial agents in Spain miss some funding, despite the fact that venture capital is more active and coming into cybersecurity, and there are specific funds to finance new startups and projects in cybersecurity, but traditional investors are not investing as we would expect in this sector that has such a huge potential. Some people say that has a sustained growth potential over 2 digits up to 2022. So investors, I figure, should be more actively involved. And companies do not devote enough efforts for innovation either. Another result is that professionals miss those capabilities. And that's why companies don't have the HR to lead innovation. And then public policies. Public policies extend so much. And sometimes they have not been able to manage innovation and research. And after a short intro to frame and shape transfer, let me refer to a success story we wanted to refer to here at INCIBE together with the research community. As part of a meeting, a scientific meeting that is an annual one, we started out a pilot project to see whether we can hit it and nail it with transfer. What was it about? we met with end users so that they would express what they needed when it comes to cybersecurity as a scientific challenge. So we have a contest for scientific challenges, and so that all research teams can give us an answer, a scientific reply to the problem. So when that stage is over, and when we see who's the winner, what's the winning solution, it'll be the industry itself to generate different innovation processes to convey the research effort into a final product. Let me tell you that this challenge program basically has had 8 different challenges. In INCIBE, as you know, we have our own needs for technology development, and so we've translated them into some scientific challenges. Then we have 11ENISE. We have representatives from 11ENISE here, and we had the defense department, and we found good response by these research teams. They've seen those challenges are attractive enough, that are in line with their work, and so they've jumped for it. And the next edition will be next year, and they will have an answer. We, as organizers, we hope that when those proposals are looked into and when we see what's been done, we hope that the industry realizes its potential for an innovation process so that they become products to meet not just the challengers' needs, but also all other users' needs, they find that there's something missing. And without further ado, let me introduce you.
Paso a presentar a los expertos que me acompañan para que ellos también aporten su propia visión. Me gustaría...
Here with us so that they can introduce themselves. As for the agenda, we thought Marta Beltrán would be coming from University Rey Juan Carlos, and luckily she's gotten sick and cannot be with us. And on the left side we have Marcos Arjona, who is an advisor consultant at ElevenPaths. He's specialized in cybersecurity and privacy. He's in charge of the research project and solution observatory that for innovative projects. So, full presentation here. Then on my left side, I have Antonio Sepúlveda from INCIBE as well. He's in charge of cybersecurity, technology development. He's good at doing physical sciences, specializing in industrial physics and automatics, and has a master's in IT development. He started out in tech consulting. He's been working for INCIBE for 10 years and has led projects in the fight against cybercrime for law enforcement agencies. My right side, we have Jorge Ramió, who's a professor or lecturer at the Universidad Politécnica in Madrid, and he teaches security and cryptography. He's been so for over 25 years now, and he's been part of your PhD years in Spain and Latin America. If you're interested, you know Crypto Red probably. And so you have some time, each of you, to discuss the topic at hand. I'm Marcos Arjona, and I work at 11ENISE. I'm not so sure how many of you know about us. This is Telefónica Digital's cybersecurity brand. We have 300 employees focusing exclusively on cybersecurity, and we are part and parcel of Telefónica. We are not a branch, but we are part of the corporate company, meaning that we work at a department where we dynamically promote all cybersecurity activities that are then transferred to Telefónica, or what we generate in-house with our portfolio, client portfolio. I work on innovation, that is discovery and innovation for 11ENISE. This means that my department is meant to be in close contact with providers, vendors, users, a but then the idea is that we have direct channel so that we can talk to them, gather the ideas for the innovation sector. Innovation per se as a concept is exhausted, is a buzzword. Everyone says innovation, and yet it's lost its meaning, that word, because of the overused. At 11ENISE, as for innovation, we go a step further. We try to understand innovation as creating new questions for which there are no answers. We think new technologies, disruption, growing disruption, or all technologies we can add to our products and research endeavors come from the sector where the most experts are to be found. Most of the time, we turn to the university and academics as well. We are in Malaga. From Malaga, we manage all innovation for ElevenPaths, and we have different teams in Spain, Argentina, and we are also starting up some in Chile, Miami, and Florida as well. So where am I from? When I completed my degree, I was part of a research group in Malaga where I got used to the research flows at the university. I have to say, being critical, that the university and research groups have some approaches that are balanced on its evolution or closeness to the industry. After being part of that group, I moved on to the tech center, where I came across other problems. We see that tech centers need to lots of efforts into fund collecting or raising, and this is also damaging on the normal development of their processes or resources that they could use for new innovation. And then I ended up at ElevenPaths, where I've been lucky enough to stay in contact with the university and others, finding out things that we're missing at the university and at tech centers as well. So what about JNIC? So not this year, but in 2016, there was an attempt to have this contest. And so I contacted Marta, Beltrán, and then Juan. And thanks to INCIBE, we created this challenge for tech companies and universities. We'll go deeper into the challenges put forward in a minute, but I thought it was a highly interesting initiative because we are breaking down a barrier that I find is existing and is prevailing, that brings university far away from the goals that they should promote with their research, and that's using research for products and services in the industry. I think that's been all for me. I've introduced my department and my experience. Thank you very much, Marcos. Antonio. Good morning. I'm Antonio Sepúlveda, in charge of tech development projects for cybersecurity. Maybe you don't know about INCIBE, but we are part of the DG Technology and the DG Operations. Same as Marcos, let me explain or share my personal experience throughout 10 years I've spent at INCIBE, especially my work with the university. Initially, I was part of a department that is not existing anymore. It used to exist when it was in TECA. It was software quality. I came from Madrid just to add momentum to that department that was just starting then. And my contact with the university was light. There was not an option to find synergies between both types of organisms to achieve the innovation that Marcos referred to. It is also because INCIBE had been up and running for a year only, and so it was highly complicated. It was just limited to some cooperation agreements where there were some small-scale developments or even spreadsheets using macros that you would bought and ended nowhere. So the end user, as Juan said, is paramount here. Then years went by, cooperation projects were just one-off. Again, I'm just sharing my case, my experience at INCIBE. And so we had a chance to be part of it, or rather, we put this project forward to the Commission, the ASEC project, where the goal was to develop a full software against child abuse. And we had a chance to cooperate with several partners, University of León and Polytechnica from Madrid. And so I find this is the first positive experience that I find is a success story. There was cooperation between the university and another institution, a body, such as INCIBE, which is a public institution. Why do I think it was a success story? Because I find we created a kind of model, and I say model because that's important. This was joint work model, trying to define what our tasks were for each. As for the university, it's all about research, but sometimes the red line between research and development is not well defined. So, as part of the project, we realized that because of its duration, it was 3 years of co-funded project, and we had to develop something that would end in a final product, in an end product. And as a PM, I found it was critical to have something that could actually bring to the commission to justify and get the subsidy, but also something that someone would use. And so the model we set up had a small fail that we are debugging now, where research teams had to go into development, which in the end meant that the result of the research had not the reach and the scope we wanted it to. And in the end, we even had to redefine some of the algorithms that were generated as part of the project. And we debugged it, the model, the work model with the university, after our experience, because based on the results we had from the project, it's a solution that is being used by police and the civil guard in Spain. Well, the latter one is deploying it, but thanks to the useful cooperation with the University of León, we decided to add an addendum to solidify that work, bringing together research and industry. Why with the University of León? Because we found that our needs as part of INCIBE back then and also currently, they were focusing on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and artificial vision both. And specifically, the University of León, if you were at the talk on artificial intelligence yesterday, we had the group representative there, and we find it is a need, and since it was a powerful team, so we thought it was a very good team, we decided to add an addendum and make sure that we had a team that was fully devoted to the same thing we had done with the URJC project, but yet here trying to start out new research, applied research lines. We have a joint goal, a joint result, and we've been working on it for 1.5 years now. What are the results from this team? Well, many of them, all research lines so far have achieved results that are to be seen in INCIBE solutions. Some of them, they've worked on artificial vision and detection of minors on pictures and clips, and this has to do with child abuse related problems. Those solutions developed by the University of León specifically, these research groups are part of 2 tools, one of which is ASA-ZAC, the European project we mentioned before, and they're both being used by the tech group and telematic crime detection groups for the police and the civil guard alike. So they've been fruitful, and they've become a final product, an end product with very good results. For example, minor detection, we had algorithms and things that had been done, but using real data with true images from cases. That way, the matching percentages, the hit percentage is very, very high. That way we bring together minors and child abuse, and so we can detect in different pictures cases of the misnomer, child abuse or child pornography rather. And same as here, we work with Tor, with domain detection, information gathering. The University of León, that team has worked on classifying all those domains, so in a way they can be located in its box and having to do with cybercrime. It is drugs and weapons and jihadism, etc. They've worked really hard as part of this research group, and thanks to the model that was not debugged because of the project needs, well, we are updating it now. We are trying to see how we're doing. We know what the red line is, we know where it is, and so we take the research and turn it into part of a product or a service that INCIBE is offering right now. I have many examples of research lines we are working on, such as text summaries for jihadism, so many. With this intro, I meant to say that our experience has gone up. We touched upon universities to see what was going on, to gain some experience, and because we were very young at INCIBE and starting out, and so it all ended up in a very positive result and experience with a research group, and we see that the results from that research groups become useful products and applications. We have an end user, as Juan said, that makes the most of it. Maybe it's about hunting down a pedophile user or a jihadist. So this is real life and real examples, and that's my introduction, going through different maturity stages for the model. Thank you very much.
Presentas un poco la parte de la universidad.
Vale, pues primero que nada, Juan.
Right. Jorge, you are a representative of academia, so it is a pleasure and an honor to be here in this round table. I just have to say that I fully agree with everything that has been said here today. There seems that there is kind of a divorce between university and companies. We don't have the know-how that other and most advanced countries have, and I would think that we are all to blame. So I have the vision of a university. I've been working in security from the university for 25 years now. So this divorce that we are talking about and the interests of both groups, it's about the differences in terms of research. So the concept that we have about research at university is about producing papers, publishing papers. So the famous JCRs. Just for you to have a feel about the scope of research in Spain, we are carrying out a research together with Alfonso Muñoz from the CERT. So we are researching about research and development and information in terms of cryptography. So this is our research is of interest of some banks who are concerned about cryptography. So if we were to summarize the doctoral thesis on security, we find 110, more or less, 50 of which are about cryptography. The remaining 50% are related to other cybersecurity aspects, cyber defense, critical infrastructures, malware. Why there is such a high number of publications about cryptography? Well, first of all, because it is easier to publish or to about that line of research. Those of us dealing with security, we know that cryptography it is just handled by a reduced group of people in the world. So therefore, if you don't publish about, well, when you publish about cryptography because you are also a doctor, that helps you remain at the university, that secures position at university. So we work with different timings, the companies and the universities. Sometimes we don't know how to coordinate ourselves well. So we, as I say, we do not use the same timings that the companies use. And this is, here I am putting blame on me as a representative of the academia. So the universities have kind of an internal sin. So therefore, we are very much concerned or too focused on publications. If you are aware of my profile, for many years I've been working with this minor I that accompanies research and development, that is to say innovation. I work in education innovation. So massive dissemination is more interested than a paper that I may publish in a conference, which we are talking about different targets, we are talking about different concepts, but when it comes to production, they could be be very similar. This is my opinion, but my university does not feel the same. If my videos are watched 1 million times, when you say, well, 1 million times, perhaps it's not very many views, but Czech videos in Spain are watched or visited 1 million times. So this is a wide scope, but to me that scores 0. But if I publish a paper on cryptography, even if I am the 4th or the 5th author, that gives me more merit at the university, more credit at the university. So therefore the university is to blame for that. And I also would like to raise criticism against companies. Companies in Spain do not support innovation very much. They do not really invest on it. Well, we all have lots of projects in mind. Some people like myself are all the time thinking or coming out with new ideas. For instance, I have a new project in mind about WhatsApp. And however, we are missing something which is very, very common in the US. That is to say, a patron. So that is to say, a patron, someone who sponsors you. So sometimes in the US, people on their CVs, they write down, they state their failures. Well, here in Spain, we don't write, well, the things that we failed about in our bio, on our CV. That's the main difference between Europe and the US. So, well, thank you very much, Jorge. Now this is the end of our roundtable. Before we open the question and answer session to the audience, are there any questions? Right, if there are no questions from the audience, I'd like to ask you a question. So here we have representatives from the industry, from the university. My colleague is also representative of the needs of end users or sometimes the law enforcement agencies. So we have good representation. So I'd like to ask you each about the incentives, or first of all, the needs that you have to collaborate with other parties, and then the incentives or rewards that you put on the table to draw other parties into this collaboration. Well, I would like to add a nuance to collaboration of university. Well, scientific production and papers and the focus that the university puts on that, to me, is not negative. Well, because that is necessary. That's necessary for PhD students and for doctoral research. But I've also seen that universities make significant effort to find European funding. Once they are involved in those projects, their role continues to be a highly academic role. That is to say, to go ahead to continue with the production of papers. But at the end of the day, they are not, well, the results are not that tangible, they are not that practical. So this is not a criticism against the university, but the EU funding system has just given that role to the university. Many of the lines of research that are open are based on that. University is only asked to lead that project. And I think that's a mistake because, well, the university made up accommodating itself and then end up doing and producing only journals and papers. And that is a problem because the rest of the partners who come from the industry and that need to disseminate the product, to apply it to the product, at the end of the day find themselves not able to do that because they do not really back up the need from the university. So transfer between industry and university is not necessary but mandatory. Should be mandatory. All the cases that I would refer to are focused on ElevenPaths. That's where we have experience. So we primarily work with university. My field of activity is cybersecurity. It is a funnel field. All the disruptive technologies fall into cybersecurity. Everything reaches cybersecurity through a funnel. This is a fast-evolving world. We have to pay attention to the new risks, the moves made by cyber criminals, and we want to step ahead of them. So bearing that in mind, we are all the time proposing challenges to the scientific community. And these challenges are based on our needs because we know that they are the most suitable candidates to resolve those challenges, to bring to us knowledge that we just don't have. And we have designed our challenges in a way, and when I say challenges, I'm referring to dissertations, collaboration, proposals. At the end of the day, challenges that we have adapted to our products and services. So if someone resolves that for us suitably, we take that person from the scientific community, and depending on the level of suitability or eligibility, we offer them to take part in our company, for instance, through a private collaboration agreement. We foster that type of collaboration with a university. Even if all our efforts are just primarily oriented to improving the product, that's it, we have limitations that we cannot overcome. However, the university community is looking forward to transfer the effort and knowledge for this type of activities that we propose to them. So tech transfer, not only as purely transfer, well, when we say transfer, we mean that knowledge should move one way or another. So I prefer collaboration, union between university and companies at such a level where no transfer is no longer required. That is to say, joint work, joint collaboration, where both parties are aware of whatever has been developed, legally speaking, commercially speaking, so that everyone is aware how the product will end up performing in the market. Yes, well, drawing on what Marcos has just mentioned and answering your question about incentives on the table, well, there are incentives on both from both parties, and then also common shared objectives. So when, in terms of papers and publications, we, in this specific case, when we collaborate with the University of León, this could be extrapolated to any other university. So we do not put any limitations in terms of publications because we know it is just necessary for them, and then it's a way for us to disseminate the product. So publishing a paper in a specialized magazine on cybersecurity, publishing a paper about a unique new topic is of the benefit of both the university as well as INCIBE. I'm speaking on behalf of INCIBE now. What are the contributions for the university from this contribution? Well, university, well, they come up to real cases. So if we propose a line of research which is aimed at resolving a real-life problem, it's not a theoretical problem. So, okay, now we have to detect images of minors. Okay, this is a clear example. So they just do real applications of the research, and then also related to that, real data, real-life data. We are lucky enough. Well, before we talked about the end user of the law enforcement agencies, but also our CERT. One of our tasks is to develop technology so that our colleagues can manage incidents. For instance, within this team, what we do is to do phishing detection. We have a line of research about comparing images to see whether being tricked, whether, well, to find out whether, well, the website belongs to a bank or actually to a bank or not. So these are real cases of real application cases or real. So the first question that we are asked is, okay, this falls within our line of research, but which are the data that you will deliver to me so that I can train my system? So this is a contribution, in this case, from the industry to the scientific community, to the research community. So in this case of real-life cases, well, child abuse, well, the researchers also can see other side of it. Okay, I'm making research but it is research aimed at resolving a very specific issue. Anyone from the industry or from the research community, it would be perfectly all right to go to work every day to strengthen research efforts to resolve this problem, this severe problem. And other incentives, well, just to develop things that have not been done before. So child abuse has always been there, but reaching those levels of matching between of images. So having an algorithm telling me that there is a 90 odd match, it's a very, very high incentive. And I was, considering my career at university and INCIBE. In that regard, I would like to share with you the lessons learned from our participation in ASASEC, and then the model that we are implementing at INCIBE and having a working group, including collaboration of the university. Lessons learned. First of all, choosing your travel mates right. So that is to say, picking or selecting the university or the industry you want to work with. For us, for that, our previous experience was of high value. So I'm referring to both research and industry. If you don't pick you or select your travel mate well, probably you will not reach the desired destination. And then this is related to the model that we implemented. Each group should do whatever they are good at. So you need academia, researchers, they know how to research. If you ask academic to develop something professionally, perhaps they wouldn't know how to do it as well as we do it. So we have our own development teams at INCIBE, which are focused on development. I very much refer about a working model. It is essential to have a working model in place. Many times we heard from the researchers, well, this is the way we work. These are our workings. Yes, wonderful, but we cannot work in that fashion. So we found a research project. Then a year later, a publication is made. See what happens. No. So we have to establish a working model so that each party knows how the other party is working. For instance, in my case, I was not aware of the phases any research goes through. And actually, we from the industry, we are helping curating and debugging that joint working model, and then ongoing monitoring of research. What I said before, okay, I give you the money, you tell me in a year what are your outcomes? No, I don't believe in that. To me, it's just one more project, okay? If I have a vendor, I'm not comparing a vendor from the industry with a research team. But what I mean is that we need to do ongoing monitoring. So that both worlds know each other, both landscapes are converged with each other, and so that outcomes are also results of that convergence. So in terms of lessons learned, as same as in any project and collaborative initiative, lessons learned are extremely important. And now I'd like to finish by asking Jorge the incentives. Oh, there is a question in the room. Okay, we take it after Jorge's answer. What would you expect from the industry so that you will find it appealing to work with a company in the development of a project? What do you think could be your contribution, and how can you be appealing to industry? Well, speaking last has a disadvantage that nearly everything has been said, and then I will also try to be brief. Well, there are incentives on both parts. So for us, the university, the incentive is just to be more realistic, to put things into practice and to find the solutions to real-life problems, so to end up with a tangible product. And then the companies are interested in having feedback from state-of-the-art research that we carry out at university. However, I would like to be specific about something which is sometimes difficult to differentiate. For instance, when I assessed the previous research project, for instance, by ANR, and when I had to classify them as projects of technology innovation, sometimes it is difficult to classify them. So I believe that we should think about company, university collaboration from the viewpoints of technology and innovation. Often in research, we cannot really fulfill the deadlines of companies. Well, as Pablo said before, we say, well, in a year's time, you'll give me the outcomes of your project. Well, sometimes our research takes 1 year, sometimes takes 5 years, because we don't have a preset deadline. So, however, when it comes to tech innovation, things may change. When you're talking about tech innovation, you are adapting things, upgrading something which already started, so therefore you could be more accurate in establishing a deadline. So therefore, I think we should all focus on tech innovation. And I say that innovation is not only technology. We should not forget about education innovation. That's what we are working on through CryptoRed. We are working on massive dissemination. Well, in this ENISE, there are lots of roundtables, but there is no roundtable about awareness raising in the population about education. At the end of the day, end users are mostly the ones who make mistakes. Well, all of us here are experts, but other people who are not experts require training, require awareness raising. And we're talking about different type of training, different type of awareness raising, and that is not always there. Well, the conference given or the presentation given by Alison before, well, she talked about the 5 points on cybersecurity. Latin America countries were scoring 1, and also in the indicator of education. And to finish, what could be the contribution of university and of the industry? It would be very interesting for the industry to propose to university not only lines of research, but lines of work. Or, for instance, for dissertations. Do you have any problems in your company? As Pablo said before, I don't know, ongoing monitoring of logs, of images, to find out whether this is child abuse or not. That could be studied. That could be studied as part of dissertations following undergraduate course or graduate courses, okay, and that could help us indeed move forward. Seems to be a question in the room. Hello, good morning. I've learned how highly prestigious entities such as INCIBE is working with the university, how a company with a turnover of 500 million also can also work with PMS. Is there a way ahead of us in there? Yes, we mentioned that before, SMEs. Well, dissertations by engineering students, IT engineering could resolve a problem that SMEs may have. And you perfectly right, SMEs could propose us to work on that line of work. So you propose that to the university? Well, there will be a person from the outside, and then there will be a mentor from university. So the person from outside the university will carry out the technological monitoring of the idea, and the university mentor will see whether that idea fits to dissertation. And then once the paper or the work is finished, okay, we can enter into collaboration agreements. The students will be highly interested in that because it's a really good way to enter the job market. And then the university will also be interested in that, meaning that dissertations are aimed at resolving real-life problems. So one way to do that would be just to contact University of León or any other, and to propose to the head of the department, line of work, I have these problems, okay, and then, well, we could do the match-up with doctoral student or undergraduate student. So you go to the university right away and you ask the university to find a solution to your problem. Well, first of all, the question sometimes is about which university to go to, identify the teams in Spain who are researching on cybersecurity, what they are specialized on. Yes, of course. About that, we'd like to say that from INCIBE we have detected that the actual researchers missed like a directory, including all the research teams in Spain, and to find out who is researching on what. So therefore, from INCIBE we have launched a study which is published and available on our website, and we have also given it to the excellent network of excellence and research in cybersecurity. That's a really easy way to find out who is who in terms of research in Spain, the teams available, contact details, and what is most important, the line of research. So if you are an SME and you need a product to be developed or to give a scientific approach to your solution to better find a solution, let us say that it is the directory you can access. And so when SMEs or end users have research needs, how can they articulate their needs? How can they reach out to university? We have set up a program of challenges where open to university to express the challenges, and then also for research teams. So that experience so far is being quite successful. The current edition is still on. We will see whether those scientific proposals match the challenges proposed from the beginning, and I would like to launch this question to the roundtable. Well, we are talking about scientific challenges, but do you think that opening up these challenges is a good way? It's a good way. Well, probably two of the panelists here will agree with me because they have participated in these challenges. You, 11ENISE, do you participate in initiatives of this kind where challenges are proposed so that the research sector says, yes, I'm interested in that, I want to take part in that challenge? Well, regarding challenges, well, we are talking about dissertations at the end of the undergraduate and graduate programs, and they fit very well with the existing problems. One of the last works or dissertations that I led satisfied the needs of one of our products. We proposed that to a student. He resolved it. And over that time, we have integrated it in the workflow of ElevenPaths so that the students know and we know how this solution is coming about so that we can implement it as soon as possible. It is fantastic for the student. He ends up having his undergraduate or graduate dissertation. We just fine-tune the product and then ends up being one of our products and services in our portfolio. So regarding SMEs, how many millions of SMEs we have in Spain, how many of them are working in cybersecurity, how many of them could make a contribution to ElevenPaths, which is nearly impossible to tackle them all. But Telefonica has mechanisms and things for everything. What we do specifically with SMEs, we have a platform. Companies register on the state or the profile. They tell us the cybersecurity topics they are working on, and then we find out whether we are interested in their expertise. Then those profiles, as I say, we can get information about those profiles, then we sit down with them, we see the technologies they are using, we want to ensure that they are using an innovative technology, and then we consider whether it is feasible to develop a project considering the terms and conditions and the number of elements, and then we see whether that could end up being some of our services, or sometimes we redirect them to any of the funding sources, wider accelerator, venture risk. So we have significant number of mechanisms to work together with SMEs, because we know that SMEs could help us resolve many of the problems that Telefónica and ElevenPaths may have. And we have a good system in place, well defined, to integrate the work made by SMEs.
What about challenges? Do you think that's a good way for SMEs and others to come close to the university? Yes, I guess 2 success stories are the ones that Marcus and Pablo bring here, and I think this is exception to confirm the rule. And that is it. I find it's very interesting beginning. I think it's properly defined, and together with companies and institutions that are high level, such as 11ENISE or INCIBE. So yes, that's right. I find it is very important starting point, that kind of cooperation between companies and institutions, such as governmental institutions. And Antonio, your experience has been wonderful, of course. First, it is an INCIBE initiative, so it's not a bad one. First, because my position is at stake, and well, just kidding. But the experience has been very positive. Juan or his department has been in contact with our department, and they thought of having a series of challenges, and that was great for us. It seems they felt what we were feeling, and so we came up with 3 challenges. In the end, I guess it was only 3 of them, but we put forward 3, and they were real problems, as I said before, and the experience had been very, very positive. We got the proposals from 4 different universities. Now we've looked into them. There are a few items which we need to clarify, yet the universities are still replying. I think it's soon, still soon, but very good for us. I feel for INCIBE it's even better, because we get to know other research groups in Spain that we were not aware of, and their potential, which we were not aware of again. So by asking a specific problem and having someone who writes it down and trying to solve it, you find out what's the potential of those research groups. So it's a very, very positive experience. Let me just clarify something regarding what I said before. It might be a bit harsh in the way of expressing it, but when I say that the model we followed is trying to have some follow-up, I do not mean that this is managed or as a project. It's research and not a project. We are well aware of that. I know there's a different time frame, and as a matter of fact, our research group knows that whenever there is a problem, they start research and they follow their own stages, and they may say, well, there is a deadline and I need a deliverable. I don't think it's ever happened, never had to request or remind them of a deadline. But again, what I was meaning here, well, at least in our experience, the way we approach it, well, this is the experience we have in our team, and we find it is positive to put forward a real problem, trying to find a solution instead of going in too flexible or too open, and so there might be different branches and we might get lost amidst it. And we are based on experience, but we believe in real problems. I do not mean that is what INCIBE does, and there are other research groups, and we are not slavists enslaving other people either, and that's not the reality at all. Just to clarify it. Well, something very good about challenges. We at 11ENISE, we had put forward 3 different ones, and something that is very good, not so much for us, but the university rather, is the fact that they will push it forward, trying to clarify some doubts on industrial components which otherwise they would not have solved. So our own review, as we've seen altogether, the way we've understood it, there are some changes and some motivations so that they reorient those challenges to something more specific and not so much academic. And so I guess this is a very good overview in the future for future projects and challenges. Well, yes, you mentioned that data sets before. Often research groups do not have real data to test the efficiency and efficacy of their scientific models. Sometimes they need to have their own data sets or some data sets that have been worked or published by DARPA, for example, from many years ago, and many research groups still use, for example, the DARPA's data set. So I find that the challenges, allow the research groups, whenever they think of giving a solution, it's not just about having the viewpoint of the challenger, but knowing that they have real data sets available, so the results of their investigation or research will be much more focused and concentrated. And this is very positive as part of the scientific production when their data are backed up by reality. I guess the impact is much wider. I find this another synergy we've found, and one of the challenges here and put forward by other colleagues had been creating our own data set. This was a challenge already, having a full scientific data set that would be a simulation of an industrial environment where you can see the threats and attacks. I guess the challenge has been the business card, and there have been some research groups that actually, as part of the time you've had for a solution proposal, they've been meaning to develop the data set. Well, for us, a data set that we provide the research team with is something that then it's updated and improved and afterwards released, so to say, to the academic world so others can use it to keep researching. And this has been done. The research group contact them directly and they can stay in touch so that they turn around the academic world in any case. I guess this is one of the first questions you get asked by the research teams when you sit with them and ask the question. Yeah, great, but how do I go into the system unless I get the data sets? And I feel here it might be the same. We are lucky enough to have the sensors gathering information, which somehow is helpful to set the basis to solve the problem. And I guess it's the key element here. So we are told we don't have much time left. I don't know if there are any more questions, a final question. Otherwise, we will wrap it up here. I find it is a very interesting panel. Many interesting things have discussed having to do with transfer. We find transfer is not optional, but it is necessary. Cybersecurity products need to be innovative. They need to be at the forefront about what's going on for threats, and then research is paramount. We need to see how research is embedded into companies, how companies have access to it, and how the results of research are not just a scientific advancement, which is good, but it needs to reach the end user. We talk of having multidisciplinary groups, so transfer comes out as something natural with teams that might be made up of researchers, innovators, and developers all alike. We've discussed incentives as well on both sides to foster cooperation. We've discussed opportunities given by scientific challenge programs. That way we can see both sides cooperating together. And all in all, I guess that's what this has been. I don't know if there is a final conclusion. Jorge? Yes. Simply to finish here, because we only have 3 minutes left, companies need to approach the university. I, as a lecturer, I teach at a master's and also a degree, and whenever we need to come with a dissertation, it's difficult to have so many different dissertations without repetitions. But if they were to come from the company, that's better for companies and university alike. So come to us, approach us, and put forward specific titles, analysis of cyber attacks for that SME. That can be a dissertation for a master's degree or an MBA, whatever. So there is an embryo there, something that can be interesting, that can be looked into in the future. And for us, you will be solving a problem for us after so many problems which need a dissertation. Thank you, Jorge. As a conclusion, I have to say that we can actually bring together research and industry. We have a case. We will work on it. We work together with other research groups, not just in León, but outside of León, and it is possible. Then something having to do with in artificial intelligence, we've seen that by approaching the university, there is a huge potential for researchers, very good researchers based in Spain. Unfortunately, in some cases, we find they're not so very much valued. We said PhD yesterday, what was going on there, and I had a chance to work with some of them, and you see the potential in them. And so, yes, it can be done. Sometimes people say, well, there is a red line, I said it, which it is difficult not to go too far. We need to bring them together, and we need to work together in order to sort it out. Thank you very much, Antonio. Marcos, briefly. Well, I find it's true, that potential, because we favor it. We find it lies with the university, with the academics, and I find it is so positive that there are people supporting initiatives such as this, challenges by INCIBE and university. They are all favoring these kind of challenges, and I find this is a very good and useful tool to break down the barrier existing between university and industry. And the transfer needs to become more and more some kind of accompanying or adding value to research innovation. So that's been all. I would like to thank just the speakers and attendees for the panel. I hope you found it interesting. Without further ado, Jorge, Antonio, Marcos, thank you very much for taking part as experts. Thank you.